Welcome back, Spurts fans, to Game 7 of the World's Scaries. It's the Fright Sox versus the Boo Jays. I'm your announcer, Vin Scully. Can the Sox keep their winning streak alive? That's the big question today. Wait a minute. Looks like there's going to be a pitching change. The Jays are bringing in their right-hander. And while they do that, we'll take another look at the defense. We have Ooze on first, Guts on second, and tonight's Terrortail on third. It concerns a young lady who's pretty fond of diamonds herself and doesn't mind a little squeeze play to get 'em. I call it till death do we part.
Come on.
Please, don't do this.
Watch your step in those heels, man.
Please.
Strike three! Oh, Nimmerfro caught Swanson looking at Bird.
That's his third K.
Oh,
Jesus
Swanson
Christ.
never even saw it.
That new kid throws a mean-ass knuckler. Jams him in high and
Well,
tight.
that was one out.
It's from New Jersey, Westfield, I think. Italian kid.
I got it on Sports Channel. No traffic. We might still catch the ninth.
Yeah? All right, give me a hand.
Matt, if you would.
Don't worry, you ain't gonna bite sweet cakes. What am I, parrot? Get his fucking legs!
He's so kind.
Don't make me do this.
A heavy bastard. All right, hold on. All right, here's good.
We're gonna bury him? Oh my God.
Ah, look at this shit leaking all over the fucking place. Hey, Frank, I thought I told you to wrap him decent. Yeah, you're gonna hose it at this time. I'm tired of mopping up after you.
Like you're Mr. Fucking Clean or the Tidy Bow Man or something?
Excuse me.
This thing better have a good edge on it. You know, if my chiropractor knew I was doing this, he'd kill me. Forget about it. Okay. Right on. It's a big bone motherfucker, ain't he?
On your feet, ma'am.
No.
Mrs. Brazzi was very adamant. Said to wait until Tony's done. She wanted you to watch.
Oh, Jesus. I'm gonna miss
Here you are, ma'am. Could you take it off for me, ma'am? Please.
Cigarette? Mrs. Braxy? Would you care for anything else?
Nothing you can help me with, honey. Johnny, would you care for anything else?
No, thank you, sweetheart.
You're very pretty. Lucille is very pretty, don't you think so, Johnny?
Well, the customers think so. She does a good job for it.
What? Do you think Lucille is pretty?
I only have eyes for you, sweetheart.
Oh, Johnny gets...
Hey, take off. Hey, I missed you. I was about to send a search party after you. Double or nothing?
Sure. 3 6s.
4 6s. Doll face.
Let's see him, because I sure don't have any.
You lying little minx.
Cheers.
Cheers. Excuse me, I've got to go make a call.
What's the problem, Miss Rossi?
No, it's cool. She's drunk.
She's not drunk, she's dangerous. You don't want to get on Ruthless Rooster's shit list. Just ask her husband.
He's dead.
Exactly.
Find something?
Oh, Mr. Canaparo. I love this watch. Oh, it's beautiful.
You're beautiful, baby.
The customers think so.
Oh, stop it. I love you, baby. You know that. Only the best for you.
Oh. Oh, Johnny, I love you so much. I can't stand seeing her touch you like that.
She keeps it all in the safe. She says she's gonna give me the combination. Could be any day now. She says she wants to trust me. And you and me will have enough to buy a fucking island.
I only want to be with you.
Shit! Seems like the animals dragged away most of the last one. But it saved me a lot of digging, thank fucking God.
The skirt, what size?
6 on the 6.
My wife after 3 kids. There was a time she was a 6, but, my daughter. Yeah, she's high school age, you know, changed the length a little bit. Would you mind taking it off, ma'am? It's a shame to muddy it up.
Right here?
Give me a fucking break!
Thank you. Oh, silk. Ah, the blouse, too.
Is it safe, Johnny?
Who cares?
Hey, don't push. I'm all the way, huh?
Oh, God. Oh, Johnny.
What are you doing? No sparklers right as
Come on, Sid.
Oh, my God.
Maybe till we get inside. Will you, Willard? Johnny? Johnny, darling, are you in there?
Hey, Ruth, where'd you find these two fucking torpedoes? Couple of primitive types, huh?
Hey, I go to night school.
Who are you, Jack fucking Benny? Now look, you shut your fucking hole, I'm gonna give you a good shellac.
Like I'm worried.
You're sweating.
I'm getting a fever or something.
Shit, really?
You gonna play mommy to this little boy of yours? Or we gonna get our shit settled?
Christ. Sit down. Get him a chair.
See who play.
Those diamonds are VS1.
Yeah?
Maybe even better. They're the best around.
Is that so, Willard?
Hey, your husband fenced my goods for 10 years running. I never had a fucking problem. He knew how to treat his people, you fucking
You
mop.
said you were in a hurry, Willard. I took the damn diamonds on your word. See? Christ, I've seen better on a box of Cracker Jack. God, I'm disappointed, Willard. No? You took advantage of my sweet, sweet disposition.
Are you on menopause or what? That's what I get with dealing with a woman. Unbelievable. They don't know what they want to fucking do. Should have kept them in the kitchen. Now they're burning meatloaf. They want to burn down the whole fucking goddamn country. Your husband is
Now that's meatloaf.
What's she doing? What the fuck are you doing here, huh?
Johnny!
You trying to get her combination of her safe? Is that you trying to steal my baby's money? Is that what you're trying to do?
Oh, you
Huh?
bastard!
Shut the fuck
Give
up.
me a fucking break, will you, Johnny? My God, the bitch is standing there in her lacy panties. Her nipples are busted through her brassiere, and you're gonna tell me that you don't know how she got in here?
Sorry, baby. I swear to God.
Oh, don't you get it? Don't you ever learn? Don't you ever learn? How many times I gotta go through this shit? Ah! How many bimbos I gotta slice and dice before you keep that thing zipped?
No more, I swear.
Kiss me.
I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Shut up.
I'm sorry.
Fuck.
Asshole.
Tony, the lady's getting a chill. Will you hurry it up, please?
Looks like he cracked his bat on that one. Ooh, all the way up here.
Johnny, darling. I'd feel so much better about us if you did it.
Of course, sweetheart.
Remember, he was ejected last week for arguing a called strike, and he wants to be sure he stays in this game. Now he's coming back in. Here's the pitch. In the dirt, the right
Hey, Johnny, how you doing?
a wild pitch by Gonzalez. Tying run on his second one out. Now you have that.
Johnny?
She wants me to do it.
Johnny.
Turn around.
Johnny.
Turn around.
You told me you loved me.
Turn around, Lucy. Do it.
Marcel. I told you they wanted violence, not violins. Good help is so hard to find, isn't it, kiddies? Want a little more champagne? I hope you're hungry for tonight's murderous menu. It concerns a man who's discovered that the fastest way to a woman's heart is with a pickaxe. I call this tasty little hors d'oeuvre none but the lonely heart.
Is Madam ready for dinner?
Oh.
I hope you're hungry. Go. Quiet little dinner for two.
Oh.
And voila!
Howard, it's beautiful.
Oh, it's just a little something I threw together.
Oh.
And to go with it, I thought we'd have this bottle of the 1966 Chateau Lafite Rothschild.
Oh, I thought we were saving that for a special occasion.
Well, we're having dinner together. That's special enough for me.
Oh.
To you, my darling.
Thank you. That's quite good.
You know, there's a complexity to great wine that only comes with age. It tastes of everything that's touched it. The grapes, the soil, the oak in which it fermented, and in the end, your lips.
Oh, Howard, you do know my heart.
I hope you don't mind my bringing up business, darling, but I think it's rather important. There's a small company I want to invest in, but I'm afraid we're going to have to act quickly.
Howard, I told you whatever you think.
And I told you that I won't do it that way. As far as I'm concerned, this is your money. I'm merely managing it for you. All right?
Where do I sign?
All right, you sign here.
Okay.
That's right. And here.
And now, I think you should do something for me. Oh, no, no, no. You know.
Ah. All of it? Or just your favorite part? Yet at my back, I always hear time's winged chariot hurrying near. The graves of fine and private place. Yet none, I think, do there embrace. Now, therefore, while velvet hue sits on thy skin like morning dew, and while thy willing soul transpires, damn shame to have wasted such a great bottle of wine. Yes, yes, I need an ambulance right away. It's my wife. I think she's having a heart attack.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, in the sure and certain hope of the resurrection unto eternal life. Amen.
Amen. Sleep well, my beautiful Rose.
I'm very sorry.
Thank you.
You made her last month's special, Howard. You really did.
Well, thank you, Edgar. I appreciate it.
She loved you, Howard. How she loved you. If you need anything, call me, okay?
Ah, yes, you gave her so much, and she gave it all back.
What the fuck are you doing here, Morty?
I gotta hand it to you, Howard. You're good. You got these people completely fooled.
As a matter of fact, I was very fond of Matilda. She was a wonderful woman. So was Elizabeth. So was Claire, for that matter.
Shame they had to be killed.
That was business, Morty. Now, I could have taken the money and run, left them all destitute. Now, that would have been cruel. I do these ladies a very big favor.
Yeah.
I make them feel loved.
Yeah. As your business partner, it's my unfortunate duty to give you some bad news. The IRS froze $1 million of our assets this morning.
God damn it!
Hey, tip of the iceberg. Say goodbye to Howard and Morty, Inc. They also pushed up our day before the grand jury, so I called some of the airlines.
No, we're not going anywhere. We are not ready, Morty.
What not ready? We got $5 million, more or less. I say we liquidate and get our assets to someplace that's got good year-round weather and no extradition treaty. Yeah, there's this island I know called, Escunsion.
Morty, the whole plan was to set ourselves up for life. In this economy, $2 million will not do that job.
We're in danger. In 11 days, we face a grand jury. When they uncover this little Ponzi scheme of ours...
Okay, give me 10 days. The plan was to score one more old lady, and that's exactly what I plan to do.
10 days?
Yeah.
They're gonna nail your ass, pal. And when they do, I'd like to be just as far away as possible.
Well, trust me, Morty. You won't regret it.
Yeah, right.
Pro wrestling and bowling. I still bowl. It's very good exercise, and I like the noise. And they... My name is Effie Gluckman. I'm 67 years old, and I'm not looking for a suitor. I was married for 38 years to a wonderful man. I don't think there's anyone out there who could replace Theodore, so...
Theodore. Big Teddy Gluckman. Wow, 2 pages. Impressive. Teddy was busy.
I would rather that be understood from the start. What I want is a companion.
Check out the gems. Are they real? Is real. Yes. Oh, yes, it's real. 30 grand at least.
A friend, really. Someone to share things with. I mean, how many times can one see Paris alone?
Ah, any luck, Mr. Prince?
3245. Effie Gluckman.
5, Effie Gluckman. Oh, yes, another mature woman. But they do give a man something special, don't they? Well, I hope it works out for the both of you.
I'm sure it will.
I tried to tell the young man there'd been some error, but he insisted on seeing you himself. Shall I show him out, madam?
In a minute, Stanhope. Mr. Prince? Nothing personal, Mr. Prince, but to be perfectly honest with you, I had in mind someone a little closer to my own age. I mean, what would an attractive young man like you want with...
An older woman, like you? Aside from the money. That is what you mean, isn't it?
The thought had crossed my mind, yes.
I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't need your money. I could show you a bank book, but I think we'd both agree that that would be somewhat tasteless. And as for attractive young ladies my own age, I'm afraid that that kind of beauty is wasted on me. You see, women like that have certain needs that I'm unable to fulfill.
Stanhope, thank you.
I'll be nearby if you need me, madam.
Mr. Prince, are you saying that you're...
All I want from a woman is companionship. Because, after all, no one wants to see Paris alone. I never truly learned to appreciate women until I stopped thinking about them in that way.
You know what your trouble is, Howard. You've spent your whole life pursuing the wrong kind of woman.
And that's what I saw in you, Effie. Not just a woman, but a kind of goddess. Effie, I know exactly what you mean.
My husband, Theodore, had your condition when he met me.
Really? He was impotent too?
He was handsome and wealthy, but wounded in that way. You remind me of him. But you seem so much more passionate, more alive. Well, of course you are. I never thought I'd feel this way about another man, but...
Oh, look at the time. I must have kept you from 1,000 things. Thank you for talking to me, Effie.
Howard, why don't you stay for dinner?
I really couldn't.
No, please. Please, I insist. Stanhope!
Shall I show the gentleman to the door, madam?
I want you to set 2 places for dinner.
But there's not enough lamb.
What?
Not enough lamb.
Make extra rice and use the good china.
Surely not the good silver as well.
I want everything to be perfect. Here, put this in a vase. Jigsaw puzzles were Theodore's passion. He spent 6 years on that one. In fact, he died right at that table. The puzzle is exactly as he left it.
I've always found jigsaw puzzles to be an incredible waste of time.
Me too. Howard, I've known men twice your age who didn't have half your worldliness. I can help you.
Effie.
I can remedy your condition.
Really, we shouldn't. We have all the time in the world.
Not when you're my age, you don't. Just relax, my darling. I'll be gentle. Howard, I made you breakfast in bed. For some reason, this morning, I have a hell of an appetite.
Effie, listen, about last night, I mean... Not since college, not even in college.
Don't
what was it,
say
5,
anything.
6
I
times?
feel great. I haven't felt this good in years.
Well, just don't expect that from me every night, all right?
Oh, this came for you this morning.
Really?
Mm. Who's it from?
It's, business. I have to skip breakfast. I'm sorry.
Oh. You're coming back, aren't you?
Effie, of course. If you'll have me.
you doing here?
You know, I could ask you the same question, Morty. What are you doing here?
What does it look like? Getting ready to blow this pop's head.
Kind of premature, aren't you?
Did anyone see you come in here? You know we really shouldn't be seen together.
What were you gonna do, Morty? Take the money and run? Leave me holding the bag?
All those wives are starting to rub off on you, pal. You're babbling.
Come on, Morty. You know, you lie like you dress. Badly. Take that tie, for instance. You know that doesn't go with your shirt?
Thanks for the fashion tip.
You're welcome. Welcome home, Mrs. Howard Prince.
Oh, I can't tell you how much fun that was. I know you wanted to wait, but I thought, why? This morning when I woke up, all I wanted to do was go to City Hall and get married.
Will the happy couple be having lunch in the dining room for a change?
No, I think we'll be having it in bed, as usual. Oh, Howard, come. Now sit. I have a little wedding present for you. Yesterday, I called the bank and told them to change the titles on all the accounts. All it needs is your signature.
Now, Effie, I told you not to do that.
Now, don't be angry with me. If managing my money gives you pleasure, I want you to do it. I love you, Howard. Now, I'm going upstairs to start the jacuzzi, and when it's full and bubbly, I'll expect to find you in it.
This arrived for you, sir, while you were celebrating the nuptials. Congratulations, I'm sure, for this wonderful moment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Prince, hi. I didn't hear you come in. You have to excuse me. I thought when I owned the place, I'd never have to clean the head, but...
You take a real personal interest in your clients, don't you, Perkins?
Well, yeah.
What was it you said about older women?
Oh, I don't remember saying anything.
You said they give a man something special. You said that, didn't you?
Well, I could have, yes.
Is that what you find criminal?
Look, Mr. Prince.
You know what I find criminal? Blackmail. Hi, sweetheart. Listen, I'm sorry I had to run out on you like that, but something came up. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to give Stanhope the night off. Because I'm going to make dinner for us both tonight, that's why. That's right. Just you and me and a nice bottle of wine.
Does the name Matilda Mason mean anything to you?
I thought I gave you the night off.
How about Elizabeth Swarthmore or Claire McCarthy? Shall I go on? It seems, sir, there is something of a pattern to your past.
What's your point, Stanhope?
My point is that I could call the police, but that would only distress Mrs. Gluckman. I don't want to do that, so I won't. As long as the marriage is annulled and you agree to leave here right now and never come back.
Well, that's an interesting proposition, Stanhope, but why would I want to go along with that? Effie loves me.
No! No, that's the deal.
And I've said all I intend to say.
Well, what can I say, Stanhope? You win. Go ahead. Shoot me. Come on, Stanhope. Shoot me.
La 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 la.
Isn't this lovely?
Oh, thank you. Well, here's to luck and love. May our passion last forever.
Oh.
What's the matter?
I don't like red wine. It's too bitter.
Oh, have just a little for me.
Yes, all right. I'm sorry, Howard. I didn't mean to be difficult.
I know you didn't, sweetie pie. To you. And here's to us.
Howard, you're trying to get me drunk, aren't you? Ooh. In that case...
Howard!
Yes. Yes, I'd like an ambulance, please. It's my wife. Well, she went into convulsions, and I think...
She staggered to the stairs. And I tried to stop her, but she fell.
Please hurry. I think she's dead. Yeah, I'd like to book a first-class ticket on tonight's flight to Escunción. Escunción, Escunsion. Ascension, whatever. Howard Prince. Is that a nonstop flight? Good. And how much will that be? Uh-huh. No, I'll be paying cash. Thank you.
Mausoleum.
I thought I took care of all the loose ends. Last thing I expected was a note. So here I am. Now, what's the point of all this? What's the problem? It's a nice touch meeting here like this, but it doesn't exactly scare me.
Maybe I wasn't trying to scare you.
Well, you want a piece of the action, huh? Is that what this is all about?
I've been here for 12 years. Never seen anything like it.
What are you, a cop? Is that what I'm dealing with here?
No, I'm not a cop. I can't tell you how awe I am. All those ladies, so grateful for one last taste of life. What do you do to them? What do you say? I didn't want them to get a hold of you. I wanted you to teach me.
Them? Who's them? What is this, a conspiracy?
Don't you get it? They want you. They used me to bring you here Christ, if you could just hear them begging me.
Fuck are you talking?
Shit, man, they're coming for you. Run! Run!
There's a penalty for wasting my time.
I got good news for you, Effie. You're gonna have company for all eternity. Hey, where'd she go?
I'm over here, Howard. I'm so glad you came.
Effie?
I've missed you. Me too, Howard. We couldn't live without you. And we can't die without you. What about me? Don't you recognize me, Howard? Isn't this
Now that's what I call a happy ending. I had a feeling Effie would win Howard's heart, not to mention his spleen, his kidneys, and his gallbladder. So, will there be anything else? I love a ghoul who gives you head, and then lets you keep it.
The first time Henry Whittaker laid eyes on Marjorie Langford, it was at a charity gala, one of those polished, dripping in opulence affairs that made Henry feel simultaneously out of place and magnetically drawn to the shimmer of human vanity. Marjorie floated through the crowd like a storm of silk and perfume, her laughter tinkling above the din of polite conversation and clinking champagne glasses. Henry, a man whose life had been carved from precision and routine, found the chaos of her presence intoxicating. He watched her from across the room, noting the subtle turn of her neck, the way her eyes sparkled not merely with amusement but with an almost predatory delight in observation. She had that rare kind of beauty that was alive, that danced just out of reach, as though the world were a stage and she the only actor who fully understood the script. He had not planned to speak to her, he never planned for such disruptions, but by the time the string quartet slid into a melancholy waltz, he found himself moving toward her with a purposeful grace he had rarely known. The conversation began with polite pleasantries, a litany of words designed to conceal the undercurrent of curiosity that churned in his chest. Marjorie spoke with a voice that was both warm and commanding, a soft cadence that could coax confessions out of the most guarded strangers. Henry found himself revealing more than he intended: details of his work, the odd loneliness of his meticulously ordered life, his fascination with human psychology, the tiny rituals he clung to in the absence of chaos. Marjorie listened with a keen smile, her head tilted ever so slightly, as though evaluating his worth with each syllable. When she finally laughed at one of his nervously attempted jokes, it was not merely amusement, there was something darker there, a glint of knowing, a taste of irony that sent a shiver down his spine. In that moment, Henry was captivated, ensnared by the dangerous allure of someone who seemed to see through the polished veneers of the world to the raw, pulsing core beneath. Over the weeks that followed, Henry and Marjorie's lives began to entwine with an urgency that felt predestined, like two lines inexorably drawn toward collision. Dinner parties, museum openings, and midnight walks through rain-slick streets became the fabric of their shared existence. Henry discovered that Marjorie's charm was not merely superficial. She possessed a razor intellect, a ferocity of thought, and a daring streak that thrilled and terrified him in equal measure. Yet, beneath the brilliance, there were shadows, small, unspoken slips in her conversation, moments when her eyes darkened for reasons he could not fathom. There were whispered hints of past entanglements, allusions to danger, to men who had disappeared from her life without trace, stories that felt rehearsed but nevertheless sent a tremor through him. He asked about them once, cautiously, and she smiled, that same enigmatic smile, and said, "We all have our skeletons, Henry. Some of them just dance better than others." Despite these warnings, or perhaps because of them, Henry found himself drawn deeper into her orbit. It was at one of Marjorie's infamous masquerade parties, the kind where the champagne flowed like a river and secrets were the favored currency, that Henry first glimpsed the more perilous facets of her world. Masks obscured faces, but they could not hide the intensity in Marjorie's gaze as she glided through the throng, her movements almost serpentine, each step calculated, each smile a cipher. Henry followed her through corridors of mirrors and velvet drapes, mesmerized by the way she manipulated the crowd, bending their attentions and desires as effortlessly as a puppeteer handles strings. And then, just when he thought he understood the rhythm of her movements, she paused before a locked door at the far end of the hall, her gloved hand resting lightly on the handle. She glanced over her shoulder at him, those piercing eyes flickering with a secret promise. "Do you trust me, Henry?" she asked, her voice low and laden with implication. Trust. Henry had always been cautious, calculating, a man of meticulous planning and minimal risk. Yet in that moment, he felt an irrational surge of confidence, an unexplainable compulsion to follow her wherever she led. She turned the knob and slipped inside, and without a word, he followed. The room beyond was small, dimly lit by the flickering glow of a single chandelier. Shadows danced along the walls, stretching grotesque shapes across the ornate wallpaper. At the center of the room was a large, antique table covered in a black velvet cloth, atop which lay objects whose very presence seemed to warp the air around them, a collection of silver knives, a set of strange, faceless masks, and a leather-bound book that seemed impossibly old. Marjorie approached the book and opened it, revealing pages scrawled with cryptic diagrams, names, and dates. Henry's pulse quickened. He had stumbled into a world both exquisite and terrifying, a world that promised both revelation and ruin. Marjorie turned to him, her expression unreadable. "This," she said, her hand sweeping over the array of objects, "is where we make choices that define eternity. Some call it superstition, others call it art. I call it survival." Her eyes locked onto his, unblinking, demanding. "Henry, are you willing to take the leap?" The gravity of the question hung in the air. Henry's mind raced. He thought of his orderly apartment, his neat schedule, the carefully constructed walls around his emotions. He thought of all the evenings spent in quiet reflection, and suddenly, they felt hollow, meaningless compared to the heady intoxication of this forbidden world. He nodded, almost imperceptibly, and Marjorie smiled, a flash of triumph passing across her features. "Good," she whispered. "Then let the lesson begin." What followed was a series of nights that blurred into each other, each one a dark lesson in desire, fear, and the limits of human endurance. Marjorie introduced Henry to rituals that toyed with the edge of morality, the kind of exercises that made him question his own identity and the very nature of choice. One night, they wandered through the catacombs beneath the city, the damp stone walls echoing their footsteps, their lantern casting grotesque shadows on the vaulted ceilings. Marjorie spoke of the history embedded in the stones, of lives ended too soon, of the fine line between love and obsession. Henry felt the air thicken, as though the catacombs themselves were alive, watching, waiting. And then, at the deepest point, she pulled from her coat a small, silver dagger, its blade catching the flickering lantern light. "It's not about the knife," she said softly, "it's about the decision. What you choose to do defines who you are, and who you will become." In that moment, Henry realized the depth of his entanglement. He was no longer merely an observer, no longer merely enamored. He was a participant in something far larger, far darker than he could have imagined. The thrill of danger, the allure of forbidden knowledge, the intoxicating power of Marjorie's gaze, it was overwhelming. And yet, beneath it all, a seed of doubt had been planted. He wondered if surrendering to this world would cost him his very soul, if the ecstasy of living on the edge would ultimately demand a price he could not pay. As the weeks turned into months, Henry's life outside of Marjorie's orbit began to unravel. Friends noticed his absence, colleagues questioned his focus, and the structured routine that had once defined him became chaotic and erratic. Yet even in the midst of this chaos, he could not resist the pull of her presence. Marjorie was both muse and tormentor, guide and executioner, a force that seemed both human and otherworldly. Each encounter with her was a test, a challenge, a lesson in the dangerous elasticity of desire. Henry found himself imagining futures he had never dared consider, futures where he was unrecognizable even to himself, swept along by currents he could not control. And then came the invitation, written in Marjorie's unmistakable hand, to a weekend at her family estate, a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of the city, rumored to be both haunted and cursed. The letter promised a revelation, a final lesson that would seal Henry's fate in ways he could neither predict nor resist. He packed his bags with a mixture of anticipation and dread, feeling as though he were stepping onto a precipice, ready to leap into a void both terrifying and irresistible. The taxi ride to the estate seemed interminable, the city lights blurring past like memories slipping through his fingers. When he arrived, Marjorie was waiting on the grand staircase, her figure framed by the moonlight streaming through the enormous windows. She descended slowly, deliberately, each step measured and precise, her eyes fixed on him with that same relentless intensity. "Welcome, Henry," she said, her voice a whisper and a command all at once. "Tonight, we see if you are ready to understand the true meaning of devotion and the ultimate cost of desire." Henry swallowed hard, the weight of her words pressing against his chest. He knew, deep down, that nothing in his previous life could have prepared him for what awaited within the walls of that ancient estate. And yet, despite every instinct screaming to flee, he followed her into the darkness, stepping across the threshold into a world from which there was no easy return. The estate was a labyrinth of shadowed corridors, each turn revealing a tableau more unsettling than the last. Portraits of long-dead ancestors lined the walls, their eyes seemingly tracking Henry's every move, some faces twisted in grimaces of anguish, others frozen in eternal smiles that felt hollow and mocking. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood, candle wax, and a faint metallic tang that Henry could not identify, a smell that made the back of his throat tighten with unease. Marjorie moved ahead of him, her dress whispering against the polished floors, a spectral guide through a house that seemed alive with memory and malevolence. Henry's footsteps echoed, soft but persistent, as if the building itself were counting his passage, noting his presence, evaluating his worth. They entered a room at the far end of the western wing, a vast chamber dominated by a towering fireplace and walls adorned with intricate tapestries depicting scenes of feasting, hunting, and violent betrayal. The glow of the fire cast flickering shadows that seemed to writhe independently of the flames, forming grotesque shapes that Henry's imagination could not resist interpreting as omens. Marjorie gestured to a set of chairs arranged in a semicircle, each facing a low table upon which lay an assortment of peculiar objects. An ornate glass decanter filled with an inky black liquid, several crystal goblets, a bundle of parchment sealed with crimson wax, and a small, intricately carved box that hummed with an energy Henry could almost feel through his fingertips. "Tonight," Marjorie began, her voice soft yet imbued with authority, "we explore the boundaries between loyalty, obsession, and the inexorable pull of fate. These objects," she said, indicating the items on the table, "are more than they appear. They are instruments of revelation, mirrors to the soul, and tests of conviction. You may choose to engage with them, or you may observe. But remember, Henry, observation alone is a kind of participation." Henry swallowed, the weight of expectation pressing down on him. He felt as though he were a child again, standing before a magician who promised wonders and terrors in equal measure. There was exhilaration in this uncertainty, a thrill in the forbidden, but it was tempered by a gnawing sense of dread, a whisper at the edges of his consciousness warning him that some doors, once opened, cannot be closed. Marjorie picked up the decanter and poured a dark, viscous liquid into one of the crystal goblets, the surface reflecting the firelight like a black mirror. "This," she said, "is the elixir of clarity. A single sip will reveal truths you may not wish to confront. The choice is yours." Her eyes locked onto his, and Henry felt a magnetic pull that made his resolve waver. He knew that stepping back now would signal fear, weakness, and perhaps a betrayal of the curiosity that had carried him so far. With a trembling hand, he accepted the goblet. The liquid was unnervingly warm, slipping down his throat with a bitter tang that seemed to scrape at his very consciousness. Within moments, the room shifted. The walls seemed to breathe, the shadows stretching and contracting as if alive. Henry's thoughts became fluid, memories and imaginings colliding in kaleidoscopic patterns. He saw visions of his own past, moments of cowardice and deceit, of desire unfulfilled, of opportunities squandered. And woven through these recollections were glimpses of Marjorie, always observing, always knowing, her presence both a comfort and a torment. "You see, Henry," Marjorie said softly, moving closer, "truth is a double-edged sword. It can free you, or it can chain you. It is not the knowing that is dangerous, but the acting upon what you know." Her fingers brushed against his arm, a feather-light contact that sent an electric shiver down his spine. He realized, with a mixture of awe and fear, that every choice he had ever made, every hesitation and impulse, had led him to this precise moment, and that the next steps he took could alter the course of his existence irrevocably. From the corner of the room, the small carved box seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Drawn to it, Henry hesitated only briefly before lifting the lid. Inside was a delicate, skeletal key and a note inscribed in Marjorie's elegant hand: "Unlock the door you fear most, and you will know the measure of your devotion." The ambiguity of the message unsettled him. Which door? What fear? His mind raced with possibilities, secret chambers, forbidden knowledge, hidden truths that might destroy him or elevate him beyond ordinary existence. Yet, despite the unease, there was an undeniable thrill, a rush of anticipation that made his pulse race. He rose and followed Marjorie through the twisting corridors of the estate, the key clutched tightly in his hand. The mansion seemed to shift around them, corridors elongating and bending, doors appearing where none had existed moments before. The air grew colder, and the firelight from the previous room receded into distant memory, replaced by the pale luminescence of moonlight filtering through grimy windows. They arrived at a heavy oak door, its surface etched with symbols that seemed both familiar and alien, and Henry's breath caught in his throat. Here was the threshold, the juncture of curiosity and dread. Marjorie paused, her hand resting lightly on the knob. "Once you enter, there is no turning back," she whispered. "Are you ready to see what lies beyond?" Henry nodded, though his stomach churned with anxiety. With a trembling hand, he inserted the skeletal key into the lock. The mechanism clicked with a sound that reverberated through his bones. As he pushed the door open, a wave of cold air spilled forth, carrying the scent of damp earth, decay, and something else, something ancient, deliberate, almost sentient. The room beyond was bathed in a dim, greenish glow, and as his eyes adjusted, he saw a scene that made his pulse seize. The chamber was circular, walls lined with shelves containing jars, each filled with unidentifiable substances that shimmered with unnatural colors. Bones, feathers, and fragments of objects from long-forgotten rituals were meticulously arranged, catalogued with labels that hinted at the lives or experiences they once represented. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, and upon it, a single coffin-sized chest, closed and ominous. Marjorie stepped forward, her movements fluid and confident, as if she had walked this path countless times before. "This is the crucible," she said. "Here, truth is distilled, choices are measured, and devotion is weighed against consequence. Will you approach it, or will you retreat?" Henry's curiosity overwhelmed his fear. He stepped toward the chest, each movement deliberate yet trembling with anticipation. Marjorie's gaze never wavered, following him with an intensity that made him feel simultaneously exposed and protected. He reached out and lifted the lid. Inside, he found a mirror, its surface smoky and undulating, as if liquid rather than solid. Reflected in it was not his own face, but a version of himself warped by fear, desire, and unspoken guilt. And then he saw her, Marjorie, not as she appeared in the flesh, but as an ethereal figure, her eyes burning with a light that was both beautiful and terrible. "You see, Henry," she said, her voice emanating from both the room and the mirror itself, "our true selves are often hidden behind layers of denial, fear, and societal expectation. Here, stripped of pretense, you confront your own essence. Do you accept what you see, or do you deny it and remain forever imprisoned by illusion?" Henry's hands shook as he gazed into the mirror. The figure before him was him, Yet not him, a distorted version that seemed to mock his every virtue and amplify his every flaw. Fear and exhilaration battled within him, but he knew, with a clarity that cut through doubt, that denial was impossible. He swallowed hard and whispered, "I accept it." Marjorie's smile, radiant and enigmatic, flickered like the reflection in the glass. "Good," she said. "Then you understand. True devotion is not merely love or desire. It is the willingness to face the abyss and step forward, knowing that the path may consume you entirely." She extended her hand, and Henry took it, feeling a current of energy, neither wholly comforting nor entirely terrifying, pass between them. The room seemed to breathe, the shelves of jars and relics humming with life, as if acknowledging his choice. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time had become fluid, meaningless in the crucible of the estate. Henry felt both infinite and infinitesimal, caught in the delicate balance between reality and something far darker, far more potent. Marjorie spoke of legacies, of debts unpaid and promises broken, of the thin line separating devotion from obsession, love from possession, life from death. And through it all, Henry felt a transformation, subtle yet profound, as if each word, each gesture, each choice had irrevocably altered the core of his being. By the time they emerged from the chamber, the first light of dawn was creeping over the horizon, casting a pale, trembling glow across the estate. Henry felt exhausted, exhilarated, terrified, and strangely liberated. Marjorie's presence, once daunting and mysterious, now seemed like a beacon, guiding him through a world that had become simultaneously more complex and more comprehensible. He understood, in that quiet, trembling moment, that nothing would ever be the same, not his life, not his desires, not the boundaries between fear and fascination. And yet, beneath the exhilaration, a whisper of foreboding lingered, a hint that the lessons learned, the choices made, and the truths confronted would have consequences far beyond the dawn, consequences that would shape not only Henry's fate but the intricate, shadowed world that Marjorie inhabited and commanded with effortless authority. The days following their ordeal in the circular chamber were a haze of heightened awareness for Henry, as though every sensation, every whisper of wind or faint creak of the estate's aged timbers, carried a meaning he was suddenly compelled to decode. Marjorie moved through the mansion with her customary ease, an unshakable presence that seemed to both anchor and destabilize him at once. There was an unspoken understanding now, an invisible tether that drew him toward her, even as the echo of the chamber and its revelations lingered in his mind like a haunting refrain. The estate, alive with its own consciousness, seemed to pulse in time with their interactions, hallways elongating subtly when their conversations grew tense, doors creaking open to reveal objects or symbols that might have been hidden to an ordinary observer. It was as though the house itself approved of the choices Henry had made, or perhaps it merely observed, neutral and omniscient, waiting for the next misstep. Marjorie introduced him to a new room that morning, one he had never noticed before, tucked behind a false panel in the library. Inside, the walls were lined with books, but not ordinary tomes. These were bound in leather that seemed to pulse faintly, titles etched in unfamiliar alphabets and glyphs that danced across the surface when looked at too closely. The air smelled faintly of ink, dust, and something organic, almost as if the books themselves had a heartbeat. On a pedestal in the center of the room lay a single volume, open to a page that depicted a diagram of interlocking circles, lines, and sigils that suggested some elaborate, ancient ritual. "This," Marjorie said, her eyes glinting with a mixture of amusement and gravity, "is the Codex of Commitment. It records not just actions, but intentions, desires, fears, the invisible architecture of human devotion. Few are allowed to read its pages, and fewer still to comprehend them fully." She paused, letting her words hang in the thick, still air. "You, Henry, are among the few. And what you learn here will shape not only your destiny, but the very pattern of our shared existence." Henry felt a thrill of anticipation tempered by a creeping dread. The Codex seemed alive, a sentient entity woven from the collective fears and obsessions of generations long past. He approached the pedestal with reverence, reaching out to touch the page. As his fingers grazed the surface, a subtle vibration traveled up his arm, and he felt an almost imperceptible pulse in his chest, as if the book recognized him, acknowledged him, and weighed him in its invisible balance. Words and symbols seemed to shift under his gaze, forming meanings that defied conventional logic, yet felt intuitively clear. Every line, every curve of ink, resonated with something deep within him, a part of his psyche he had never explored, a chamber of the mind that had remained locked until this moment. Marjorie circled him slowly, observing with a precision that made him feel simultaneously scrutinized and protected. "You must understand," she said softly, "that devotion is never passive. It demands courage, surrender, and at times, a willingness to embrace the terrifying unknown. The Codex will test you, not because it is cruel, but because truth is rarely gentle. It strips us bare, leaving only the essence of our being." Her voice lowered almost to a whisper, a melodic cadence that seemed to entwine with the very vibrations of the room. "Are you prepared to confront that essence, Henry?" He nodded, though his stomach churned with apprehension. The memory of the mirror chamber, of the distorted reflections and the raw truths he had confronted there, lingered in his mind like a shadow that would not disperse. Yet he was no longer hesitant. The fear that had once dominated him had become a curious companion, sharpening his senses rather than paralyzing them. He understood now that whatever lay ahead, he could not turn away. Curiosity and desire had become indistinguishable from survival itself, each pulse of adrenaline and uncertainty binding him ever closer to Marjorie's enigmatic orbit. Hours passed in the library room, with Henry absorbed in the Codex while Marjorie observed, occasionally offering cryptic guidance or subtle corrections. He learned of patterns in human devotion, the interwoven threads of loyalty, obsession, and fear. There were diagrams depicting choices made and the consequences they spawned, illustrating chains of cause and effect that stretched across generations, revealing how a single act of passion or betrayal could reverberate far beyond its immediate context. The weight of this knowledge was intoxicating, almost overwhelming, and Henry felt himself teetering on the edge of comprehension and madness. Yet amidst the intensity, there were moments of intimacy, fleeting but potent. Marjorie would brush against his arm as she explained a particularly complex concept, or lean close to point out a symbol, her breath warm against his ear, sending shivers down his spine. The intensity of these gestures was magnified by the charged atmosphere of the room, the hum of the Codex under his fingertips, and the deepening realization that their fates were entwined in a way that transcended mere attraction or desire. He was bound to her by knowledge, by shared revelation, and by a gravity that neither of them could resist. By evening, the study had grown dim, the fading light casting long shadows across the shelves and the open pages of the Codex. Marjorie closed the book and guided Henry to a window overlooking the sprawling grounds of the estate. Moonlight bathed the landscape in a silvery glow, revealing twisted trees, creeping ivy, and a garden maze whose hedges seemed impossibly tall and dense in the night. "There is a lesson in the garden as well," she said, her voice laced with both promise and forewarning. "The maze reflects the mind. Each turn, each choice, each hesitation will reveal something about you, about your courage, and about the strength of your devotion. Will you follow me?" Henry, compelled by a mixture of trust and unexplainable fascination, followed her across the cold stone floors and into the night. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth, roses, and an underlying trace of something indefinably sharp. They entered the maze, the walls rising above their heads, enclosing them in a living labyrinth of shadow and moonlight. Marjorie led the way with ease, her steps silent, almost gliding, while Henry navigated with a mixture of caution and exhilaration, every turn revealing new twists, dead ends, and glimpses of the unseen. The maze seemed alive, responding subtly to their movements, reshaping itself with a logic that defied comprehension yet felt profoundly meaningful. As they progressed deeper, Henry began to perceive faint, almost imperceptible markings etched into the walls of the hedges, symbols that mirrored the glyphs in the Codex. Each symbol seemed to pulse with recognition, as if acknowledging his passage and recording his choices. Marjorie occasionally paused, allowing him to decipher the markings, her gaze steady and watchful. "The maze is not just a physical challenge," she said softly, "it is a reflection of your mind. Every decision, every hesitation, every impulse is mirrored here. And remember, Henry, the maze reveals not only your strengths but also your hidden fears." Hours passed, though time had become a flexible construct within the boundaries of the estate and its mysteries. At the heart of the maze, they encountered a fountain, its waters dark and still, reflecting the pale moonlight like liquid glass. In the center, a pedestal held a sealed envelope, its wax stamp marked with an intricate sigil. Marjorie handed it to Henry, her touch lingering in a way that sent warmth through his fingers. "This is your next test," she said. "Inside this envelope is a choice. It may appear simple, but the consequences are profound. Decide wisely." Henry hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing upon him. The maze had stripped him bare, revealing not only his courage and curiosity but also his vulnerabilities, his fears, and the latent desire to surrender fully to the unknown. He opened the envelope, unfolding the letter inside. The words, penned in Marjorie's elegant hand, were deceptively simple. "Will you take what is offered, knowing it may change the course of your existence irreversibly? Or will you leave it, preserving the illusion of safety and normalcy?" The question struck him like lightning, a confrontation with the deepest currents of his psyche. Every fiber of his being urged him forward, toward the unknown, toward the possibility of transformation, while a smaller, cautious voice whispered warnings of danger, loss, and the irreversibility of choice. He looked to Marjorie, whose expression remained serene yet intense, a mixture of encouragement and silent challenge. The bond between them, forged through shadowed chambers, ancient texts, and shared exploration, demanded a response, and Henry knew that hesitation was no longer an option. With a steadying breath, he made his decision, reaching toward the offer with a resolve tempered by fear and exhilaration. The moment he touched it, the waters of the fountain shimmered, rippling outward in concentric circles that seemed to reverberate through the maze, through the estate, through the very air around him. Marjorie's eyes glimmered with approval, a fleeting, enigmatic smile crossing her face. "So it begins," she murmured, her voice carrying a note of finality and anticipation, as if a new chapter of their intertwined destinies had just been initiated, one that would test, transform, and define them both in ways yet unimaginable. The night deepened around the estate, swallowing the maze and its fountain in shadows that flickered under the intermittent glow of the moon. Henry felt a pull in his chest, a rhythmic thrum that matched the pulse of the envelope's contents he had claimed. Whatever power it held was subtle yet insistent, like a tide drawing him inexorably toward some unseen shore. Marjorie's presence beside him, always steady, always alive with that dangerous charm, both comforted and unnerved him. He had come to understand that she was a force beyond conventional morality or simple desire, someone who existed at the intersection of fear and fascination, a guide through realms most mortals never dared enter. And yet, despite the lessons, the rituals, the mirrors and codices, he felt that what awaited next would stretch the boundaries of both their understanding. Marjorie led him away from the fountain and deeper into the maze, where the hedges thickened and the air grew damp, redolent of soil and something more pungent, more elemental. She spoke little, allowing Henry's thoughts to fill the silence, each step magnifying his anticipation. Every turn brought new sensations, a whisper of wind that felt like a voice brushing his ear, the rustle of unseen animals, or perhaps specters, moving just beyond the reach of perception. His senses were acute, finely tuned by weeks of exposure to Marjorie's world, yet even he felt the chill of apprehension climb his spine. This was a territory where ordinary logic faltered, where instinct and intuition were all that remained to guide him. Finally, they arrived at a clearing within the maze, a space circular and unnaturally still. A single tree, gnarled and ancient, rose from the center, its skeletal branches twisting toward the sky like pleading hands. At the foot of the tree, a shallow pit had been dug, its edges lined with smooth stones that glinted faintly in the moonlight. Henry's breath caught. The pit seemed simultaneously natural and deliberately constructed, as though it existed for some ritual purpose beyond his comprehension. Marjorie paused, resting her hand against the trunk of the tree, her fingers brushing over the bark as if reading some invisible inscription. "This," she said softly, "is the test of surrender. What you choose to leave here will define the next stage of your devotion. Not every gift is given freely, and not every act of surrender is complete without risk." Henry approached cautiously, heart hammering in his chest. The envelope had grown warm in his hand, pulsing faintly with a subtle energy he could not explain. He could feel the connection between the object and the pit, though he did not yet understand the mechanics. His instincts screamed both warning and promise, warning of danger, promise of revelation. He placed the envelope into the pit, the cool stone brushing against his fingers, and felt a tremor through the ground, subtle yet undeniable. The earth seemed to acknowledge the sacrifice, swallowing it with a quiet reverence, and in that instant, he knew he had crossed a threshold. Marjorie stepped forward, her expression unreadable yet intense. "Now," she said, her voice almost melodic, "we see the consequences of choice. You have surrendered something of value, yes, but more importantly, you have surrendered certainty. And in that surrender, truths begin to reveal themselves." The air around them thickened, a dense, electric stillness that made Henry's hair stand on end. The shadows of the maze shifted and lengthened, twisting into shapes that resembled faces, hands, and forms that seemed almost human yet impossibly distorted. He took a step back instinctively, and Marjorie's hand found his, anchoring him, reminding him that they were bound in this together, observer and participant alike. From the depths of the pit, a faint glow emerged, a pale green light that coalesced into shapes both fluid and precise. Henry watched, enthralled and horrified, as the glow formed into fleeting images of people, places, and moments he had never known but somehow recognized. They were fragments of lives, some joyful, others tragic, woven together into a tapestry that seemed to speak of fate, consequence, and the inexorable weaving of human experience. And beneath it all, he discerned a pattern, subtle and relentless, the influence of choice, the ripples caused by every act of devotion or betrayal. He realized that this was more than spectacle, it was revelation, a map of unseen connections and untold truths. Marjorie's eyes glimmered in the pale light, reflecting the shifting forms with an intensity that made Henry feel exposed to some cosmic scrutiny. "Every action," she whispered, "creates ripples. And some ripples return to touch the origin in ways we cannot predict. You have taken the first step, but the current moves swiftly, and it will demand more of you than you might imagine." Her gaze softened for an instant, a fleeting warmth that reminded him of her humanity beneath the almost supernatural presence she exuded. Yet the warmth was fleeting, replaced by that sharp, incisive scrutiny that made him feel simultaneously vulnerable and exalted. Henry felt the pull of the glow, as if it called to something deep within him. He reached toward the images, tentative at first, and then with growing confidence, allowing his fingers to trace the shapes as they twisted and turned. As he did, he felt a resonance, a subtle shift within himself, as though the act of engagement had altered his perception of reality itself. The boundaries between past and present, self and other, desire and fear, seemed to blur, and he realized that he was no longer merely observing but participating in a web of existence far larger and more intricate than he had ever imagined. Marjorie stepped closer, her presence a stabilizing force in the midst of this surreal revelation. "Do you see now?" she asked, her voice both soft and commanding. "This is what devotion demands: awareness, courage, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. You are no longer merely Henry Whitaker, the man who once walked ordinary streets and measured life in mundane terms. You are a participant in a deeper order, bound to choices, to consequences, and to me." He nodded, though words failed him. The enormity of what he was experiencing rendered language inadequate. He understood only that his life had irrevocably changed, that the rhythm of his existence was now entwined with forces he could neither name nor fully comprehend. And yet, despite the awe and fear, there was a clarity, a sense of purpose that had been absent from his life until now. He had glimpsed the machinery behind human desire and loyalty, the intricate interplay of intention and consequence, and he could not unsee it. The glow in the pit began to fade, retreating into the earth as the first hints of dawn touched the sky. Marjorie released his hand and stepped back, her expression inscrutable but satisfied. "The night tests us," she said, "but the day demands action. What you have learned must now be applied. Knowledge alone is insufficient. Devotion is measured by deeds, by courage, by willingness to act even when the outcome is uncertain." She motioned toward the exit of the maze, and Henry followed, feeling the ground solidify beneath his feet, the shadows receding but leaving a lingering sense of presence, a reminder that the lessons of the night were not yet complete. They emerged from the maze, the estate bathed in the pale gold of early morning light. Birds called softly from the trees, and the wind rustled the leaves with a gentle insistence. Yet even in this serene moment, Henry sensed the weight of the envelope, the pit, and the revelations they had witnessed. He felt the subtle hum of power that lingered in his veins, a reminder that the boundaries between the ordinary and the extraordinary had been irrevocably altered. Marjorie watched him with a faint smile, the enigmatic expression that had drawn him from the very first encounter now deepened by shared experience. "Rest now," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "The estate will provide you with sustenance and comfort, but do not grow complacent. Today, you are a step closer to understanding, but the path is far from complete. There are more lessons to learn, more choices to make, and more truths to confront." She turned, moving back toward the mansion, and Henry followed, aware that the estate itself seemed to breathe, to pulse with life, as though acknowledging the progress they had made. He felt exhilarated, terrified, and profoundly alive, a man irrevocably changed by experiences that had pushed him to the limits of understanding and beyond. As they approached the main building, Henry felt a creeping anticipation for what awaited within the walls, chambers he had not yet explored, secrets yet to be revealed, and challenges that would demand courage, ingenuity, and an unwavering commitment to the path they had embarked upon together. Marjorie's hand brushed against his briefly, a reminder that their fates were intertwined, that the choices made in the shadows of the maze had consequences that would echo far beyond the immediate moment. And in that quiet exchange, he realized that fear and desire, surrender and devotion, were no longer opposites but inseparable companions on the journey that lay ahead. Henry understood, with a clarity that both exhilarated and unnerved him, that the estate, the maze, the codex, and Marjorie herself were all instruments of transformation, each designed to test, to teach, and to reveal. And he felt, deep in the marrow of his bones, that he had been irrevocably changed, that the man who had entered the estate weeks ago was no longer the same man who now walked beneath its ancient eaves, guided by the enigmatic force of the woman who had ensnared him so completely. The following morning, the estate seemed to exhale a quiet vigilance, its corridors and chambers still thick with the residual echoes of the maze and the pit. Henry walked with a deliberate caution now, his senses acutely attuned to every sound, the creak of a floorboard, the soft flutter of curtains, the faint hum of unseen mechanisms. Marjorie moved ahead of him, fluid and certain, her presence a constant gravitational force drawing him forward through the labyrinthine passages. Even in the light of day, the estate exuded an air of anticipation, a charged stillness that promised revelation and menace in equal measure. They entered a new chamber that Henry had never seen before, a long hall lined with mirrors of all shapes and sizes. Some were ornate with gilded frames, others austere and blackened with age. The surfaces reflected not just the room, but fragments of Henry's past, overlapping and distorted, like memories refracted through fractured glass. As he stepped forward, he realized that the mirrors were not merely passive reflections, they moved subtly, shifting angles, revealing visions he could not entirely control. Shadows stretched across the floor, coalescing into forms that seemed both human and monstrous, ephemeral yet deeply tangible. Marjorie followed him slowly, her eyes scanning the reflections with an intensity that made Henry feel simultaneously exposed and protected. "The mirrors are not merely surfaces," she explained. "They are thresholds. Each reflection holds a truth, a temptation, a memory, or a fear. To walk this hall is to confront yourself in ways you may not be prepared for. But to avoid it is to remain forever in ignorance, bound to the ordinary, never knowing the depth of your own potential." Her voice carried an almost hypnotic cadence, and Henry felt the pull of her words, as though the mirrors themselves were urging him onward. He approached the first mirror, the surface hazy and dim, and saw a scene from his childhood, a version of himself alone in a dark room, crying, small and vulnerable. The memory surged with a force that made his chest tighten, yet he did not look away. Instead, he traced the contours of the reflection with his eyes, absorbing the fear, the loneliness, the raw vulnerability, and allowed it to pass through him without resistance. The mirrors responded, the surface rippling slightly as if acknowledging his courage. One by one, he moved down the hall, confronting visions both mundane and extraordinary. He saw himself in moments of cowardice, of betrayal, of unspoken desire. He saw futures that might have been, alternate paths shaped by the smallest of choices. Some reflections were cruel, mocking, exposing failings he had long tried to bury. Others were beautiful, radiant with potential and promise, offering glimpses of a self he could become if he embraced the full spectrum of his being. All the while, Marjorie remained beside him, occasionally offering a guiding word, sometimes merely observing with her enigmatic, inscrutable gaze. Finally, he reached a mirror larger than the rest, framed in black iron twisted into shapes that resembled writhing vines or clawed hands. The surface shimmered unnaturally, as if liquid rather than glass, and Henry's breath caught in his throat. Here, the reflection was not his own alone, but a tableau in which he saw Marjorie and himself intertwined in a series of scenarios, each more intense, more intimate, and more unsettling than the last. There were moments of passion, of betrayal, of confrontation, and surrender, all interwoven in a tapestry of possibility that left him dizzy and disoriented. "This mirror," Marjorie said softly, her voice threading through the images, "shows the potential of your devotion, the depth of your choices, and the consequences of surrender. It is not merely a reflection of what is, but a window into what may come. To step away is to reject the possibility of transformation. To engage is to risk everything, including yourself." Henry reached out tentatively, his fingers brushing the surface. The mirror rippled at his touch, and the visions seemed to respond, moving faster, overlapping, folding in upon themselves. He felt a surge of vertigo, a sensation of being pulled into the very fabric of the images, and for a moment, he wondered if he might be swallowed by the mirror entirely. Marjorie's hand found his, grounding him, yet the pulse beneath her touch carried its own electric intensity, urging him onward even as the visions threatened to overwhelm him. He forced himself to breathe, to anchor in the present, and gradually the torrent of images slowed, settling into a series of moments that were almost meditative. In these final reflections, he saw not just what he had been or what he might become, but what he had already chosen, his acts of courage, his willingness to surrender, his embrace of uncertainty. The mirror seemed to acknowledge his growth, the ripples in the surface calming, the reflections stabilizing into a coherent pattern that made a strange, inexplicable sense. Marjorie stepped closer, her presence radiating both warmth and authority. "You have done well," she said, her words carrying a weight that made Henry feel simultaneously proud and apprehensive. "The Hall of Mirrors is not an end, but a threshold. You have confronted your fears, embraced the unknown, and begun to understand the intricate architecture of devotion. But there is more to come. The estate is a living entity, and it responds to those who engage with it fully. The next stage will demand even more of you, but it will also offer a reward beyond measure." They left the hall, and Henry felt the subtle shift in the air, the faint hum that seemed to follow him wherever he moved. The estate itself seemed aware of his progress, the walls and floors responding to his presence with almost imperceptible adjustments, slight changes in temperature, subtle variations in light, the echo of footsteps that seemed to anticipate his movement. Marjorie guided him through corridors that twisted and turned, leading him into a part of the mansion he had never explored, a conservatory filled with exotic plants, some flowering with luminous petals, others curling and twisting as if in silent agony. The air was thick with the scent of earth, moisture, and something faintly metallic, and Henry felt a prickling sensation at the back of his neck as he stepped inside. At the center of the conservatory was a pool of water, dark and still, its surface reflecting the strange foliage and the shadows of the room. Marjorie motioned for Henry to approach, and he felt the familiar pull of anticipation, mingled with trepidation. "This pool," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "is the final test of perception. It does not show what is, or even what might be, but what lies beneath the hidden, the repressed, the truths that even mirrors and codices cannot fully reveal. To look into it is to confront the deepest layers of yourself. Are you prepared?" Henry nodded, though his pulse raced. The lessons of the maze, the codex, and the Hall of Mirrors had prepared him, yet he understood that this challenge would be unlike any before. He knelt beside the pool, peering into its depths. At first, the water seemed ordinary, reflecting only the room above. But gradually, shapes began to form beneath the surface, fleeting images of his past, interwoven with potential futures, some alluring, some terrifying. Faces of people he had loved and lost appeared, alongside specters of his fears and doubts. Moments of regret and unfulfilled desire shimmered like phantoms, blending seamlessly with visions of triumph and transcendence. As he watched, Henry felt a pull, a gravitational force emanating from the water, urging him to reach deeper, to immerse himself fully in the revelations. His reflection twisted, then split, showing him versions of himself that had made different choices, taken different paths, and embraced different consequences. And beneath all of it, a singular, undeniable truth emerged: transformation was never passive. It demanded engagement, courage, and the willingness to surrender completely to the unknown. Marjorie knelt beside him, her hand brushing against his as he reached toward the water. "Do not fear what you see," she said, her voice steady, grounding him. "The water does not judge. It merely reveals. What you take from it, what you choose to accept, will shape your destiny and ours. Step carefully, Henry, but step fully. There is no half measure in devotion." Henry took a deep breath and plunged his hands into the water. The surface rippled and shimmered, and he felt a surge of energy course through him, like a current pulling him into the hidden depths of himself. Memories, desires, fears, and revelations collided and intertwined, overwhelming yet clarifying, terrifying yet exhilarating. He felt every choice, every hesitation, every act of courage and surrender converge in that singular, electric moment. And as he withdrew his hands, the water stilled, reflecting not just the room and his own face, but the sense of completeness, of understanding, of a transformation begun and irreversible. Marjorie's gaze met his, her enigmatic smile widening slightly. "You have taken the first true step into understanding," she said. "The estate, the codex, the mirrors, the maze, the pool, they are all instruments of revelation. And you, Henry, have proven yourself capable of embracing them. But remember, knowledge without action is incomplete. Devotion is tested not by understanding, but by what one does with that understanding. Our journey is far from over, and the estate has more lessons to impart." Henry rose, feeling the weight of his experiences settle within him, the pulse of the estate resonating with his own heartbeat. He knew that the path ahead would demand more courage, more insight, more surrender, and yet he felt ready, bolstered by the trials he had faced and the guidance of the enigmatic, magnetic Marjorie. The estate was no longer merely a place, but a crucible, a living entity testing and shaping him, and he understood that he had crossed thresholds that few had ever dared approach. As they exited the conservatory, the first light of morning bathed the mansion in a soft, golden glow. Henry felt exhilaration, apprehension, and a profound sense of purpose intertwine within him. The lessons of the night and the dawn had transformed him, reshaping his understanding of devotion, courage, and the mysteries of human desire. And he knew, with a clarity that both thrilled and terrified him, that the estate, and Marjorie herself, would continue to push him, to challenge him, to reveal truths both wondrous and terrifying, until he had fully embraced the path they had embarked upon together. The days at the estate began to take on a rhythm of their own, one that was both hypnotic and disorienting. Henry awoke each morning to the subtle creak of ancient timbers, the faint scent of damp earth and distant flowers, and the quiet presence of Marjorie moving through the corridors with an almost spectral grace. Each day brought new discoveries, new rooms, new challenges, and with each revelation, Henry felt the invisible threads of his devotion tighten, binding him to the mansion and to the enigmatic woman who had become both his guide and his obsession. It was a life of heightened perception, where ordinary events carried extraordinary significance, and even a whispered word or glance could alter the course of destiny. Marjorie led him to a part of the mansion that had previously remained hidden, a wing dominated by a vast atrium, where light poured through stained glass windows that depicted scenes both grotesque and sublime. The air was heavy with the scent of incense and something faintly metallic, a tang that made the hairs on the back of Henry's neck rise. At the center of the atrium was a dais, upon which rested a series of objects: a dagger with a twisted handle, a delicate glass vial containing a shimmering liquid, and a small, intricately carved wooden box that seemed almost to hum with contained energy. "This," Marjorie began, her voice low and melodic, "is the Chamber of Consequences. It holds instruments of choice, objects that can alter perception, that can test commitment, that can reveal hidden truths. Each item carries a cost, and each cost is unique to the individual who dares to engage. You will choose, Henry, and in that choice, the path ahead will be clarified. But beware, the chamber does not forgive hesitation, nor does it allow the timid to proceed unscathed." Henry approached the dais with a mixture of reverence and trepidation. The dagger seemed to draw his eye first, its twisted handle cold and almost alive to the touch, as if it possessed a will of its own. He reached out but recoiled, sensing an undercurrent of danger in the metal, a promise of pain intertwined with revelation. Next, his gaze fell on the glass vial, its liquid swirling with colors that defied description, shifting and dancing in impossible patterns. The vial seemed to hum softly, vibrating with a resonance that reverberated through his chest, promising insight or madness or both. Finally, he regarded the wooden box, its carvings intricate and alive, depicting figures in states of joy, terror, and ecstasy. The box seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting imperceptibly, waiting for him to decide. Marjorie's eyes followed his every movement, her expression serene yet intense. "Each object is a test, yes," she said, "but it is also a reflection. The dagger will challenge your courage, the vial your perception, and the box your understanding of choice and consequence. You may take only one, and what you choose will shape the trials to come." Her gaze lingered on him, piercing yet strangely tender, as if she sought to peer directly into the core of his being. Henry's hand hovered over the objects, torn by indecision. Each offered promise and peril in equal measure. The dagger called to a primal part of him, daring him to confront fear and embrace risk. The vial whispered of knowledge and perception, a chance to see the hidden patterns of the estate and perhaps of human intent itself. And the box, mysterious and alive, promised revelation of a subtler, more intricate nature, a challenge that required patience, insight, and trust. His mind raced, considering the possibilities and consequences, weighing instinct against intuition, courage against caution. Finally, he chose the box, his fingers trembling as he lifted the lid. A faint sigh seemed to emanate from within, as if the box itself were exhaling relief or anticipation. Inside was a series of miniature scenes, each one a tableau depicting decisions and their repercussions, acts of loyalty and betrayal, moments of courage and cowardice, glimpses of desire and fear. Henry realized that these scenes were not static, they shifted and evolved as he watched, responding to his gaze, to his thoughts, to the subtle currents of his attention. The box was not merely a container, it was a mirror of consequence, a living chronicle of choice that demanded engagement, reflection, and understanding. Marjorie watched silently, her eyes glimmering with approval and something deeper, something inscrutable. "You have chosen wisely," she said. "The box is a teacher of subtlety, of perception, of the interplay between action and consequence. It will reveal to you truths that are not easily spoken, that cannot be found in codices or mirrors or even in the maze. Engage with it fully, and it will shape the understanding required for what lies ahead. But remember, every lesson carries a cost, and every revelation demands courage." Henry spent hours with the box, absorbing the miniature tableaus and tracing the connections between actions and outcomes, cause and effect, intention and result. The process was mesmerizing and exhausting, as though his mind were being stretched across dimensions it had never encountered before. He saw patterns in human behavior, glimpsed the subtle motivations that drove people to devotion, betrayal, courage, and surrender. He began to perceive the intricate web of cause and consequence that spanned generations, and within that web, he recognized not only himself but also Marjorie, the estate, and the unseen forces that seemed to guide their journey. The day passed in a blur of focus and revelation. Henry's senses became attuned to subtleties he had never noticed. The faintest shift in Marjorie's expression, the almost imperceptible vibration in the box when a particularly consequential tableau emerged, the way light and shadow danced across the atrium in patterns that seemed to echo the narratives within the miniature scenes. By evening, he felt a profound weariness, yet beneath it was a sense of exhilaration, a recognition that he was engaging with reality on a level far beyond ordinary perception. Marjorie guided him away from the atrium and toward a secluded terrace overlooking the estate's grounds. The moon had risen, casting silver light across the lawns, the garden maze, and the distant forest beyond. The night was alive with the sounds of rustling leaves, distant animals, and the faint, almost musical whisper of the wind. Henry felt a deep, resonant connection to the estate and to Marjorie, a tether of awareness and emotion that bound him ever closer to the mysteries they were uncovering. "Your progress is commendable," Marjorie said, her voice soft yet carrying weight. "But the estate is a teacher, and teachers are relentless. Every lesson prepares you for the next, and every revelation opens the door to further challenges. You have begun to understand the subtle currents of cause and consequence, but now you will confront a trial of action where knowledge alone is insufficient, and where courage and devotion are tested in the most immediate and visceral way. Henry nodded, a sense of anticipation coiling in his chest. He had learned to navigate the codices, the maze, the mirrors, and the chamber of choice, but he understood that the path was only deepening, that each step required not just understanding but engagement, not just courage but surrender, not just observation but participation. He was aware that the estate itself seemed to respond to his growth, shifting and adjusting in subtle ways, presenting new challenges and opportunities in a dance of cause and effect that spanned both space and time. Marjorie extended her hand, and Henry took it without hesitation. Together, they descended a narrow staircase that led beneath the terrace, into a subterranean corridor lined with stone and lit by flickering torches. The air was cooler here, tinged with the scent of earth and something faintly metallic, a tang that raised gooseflesh along his arms. The corridor twisted and turned, narrowing in places and opening into small alcoves that seemed to echo with whispered voices, half-remembered memories, or perhaps premonitions yet to be realized. At the end of the corridor, they entered a chamber dominated by a circular dais. On the dais lay a series of objects, a ceremonial knife, a silver chalice, a set of ancient coins, and a small, sealed scroll. Each item seemed imbued with significance, radiating a subtle energy that made Henry's pulse quicken. Marjorie stepped forward, her presence commanding yet serene. "This is the chamber of action," she said. "Here, theory and observation give way to choice and consequence. Each object represents a path, a decision, and a test of devotion. You will select one, and in that selection, the course of your journey and the lessons it will impart will be determined." Henry's gaze shifted across the objects, weighing each for its implications and potential. The knife spoke of courage and precision, a direct confrontation with danger. The chalice promised insight and perhaps transformation, a ritualized engagement with forces beyond ordinary comprehension. The coins suggested the interplay of value, risk, and reward, a test of judgment and discernment. The scroll, sealed and enigmatic, radiated a quiet authority, a promise of revelation and understanding to those willing to open it. After a long moment of contemplation, Henry reached for the scroll. The seal broke easily in his fingers, revealing a series of intricate symbols and instructions written in an elegant, almost hypnotic script. As he read, he felt the familiar pull of energy, the subtle hum of the estate, the undeniable presence of Marjorie beside him, and the surge of awareness that came with another step forward on this extraordinary path. The scroll's contents would guide his next actions, testing his courage, insight, and devotion in ways that would shape both him and the estate itself. Henry felt the weight of the scroll in his hands, the intricate symbols and flowing script seeming to vibrate with a life of their own. As he read, the chamber's dim light seemed to intensify, the flickering torches casting elongated shadows that danced across the stone walls like living specters. Each line of the scroll carried instructions layered with meaning, blending ritual, philosophy, and a subtle test of perception that demanded not only attention but instinct. Marjorie's presence beside him was grounding yet electrifying, a silent reassurance that this challenge was both deliberate and profoundly transformative. "The scroll is not merely guidance," Marjorie said, her voice low, threading through the murmured syllables of the ancient script. "It is an engagement, a conversation between your will and the hidden forces that govern the estate. You cannot simply follow it, you must interpret, adapt, and act. Every action here will have resonance beyond this chamber. Understand that, Henry, what seems symbolic now will manifest materially, and what appears ritualistic may carry consequences you cannot yet perceive." Henry nodded, his mind racing with the implications. He traced the characters with his fingers, feeling a subtle warmth emanating from the ink, as if the writing itself recognized his touch and his intent. The instructions outlined a sequence of acts, gestures, placements, recitations, and observations that must be performed with precision and mindfulness. He realized that a misstep would not merely hinder progress, it could alter the flow of energy within the chamber, triggering unexpected results. And yet, beneath the caution, there was the promise of revelation, insight into forces beyond ordinary understanding, and a deeper connection to Marjorie and the estate itself. He began the sequence, following the scroll's directions with meticulous care. First, he positioned the ancient coins in a precise pattern around the dais, feeling the subtle shift in air pressure and temperature as they aligned. Each coin seemed to hum faintly, resonating with the energy of the chamber. Next, he lifted the silver chalice, pouring an invisible substance into its depths as the scroll had instructed, and felt a ripple of power surge through the stone floor. When he recited the words from the script, his voice echoed unnaturally, the syllables vibrating in harmony with the unseen currents that pulsed through the room. Marjorie observed silently, her gaze unwavering yet filled with an intensity that made Henry aware of every heartbeat, every tremor of emotion, every thought that flickered across his mind. He sensed that she was both participant and observer, that her presence shaped the energy of the ritual as much as the actions themselves. And indeed, as the sequence progressed, the chamber responded. The torch's flames stretched and twisted, shadows deepened and elongated, and the air itself seemed to thrum with anticipation. Henry's pulse raced, not from fear alone but from the exhilaration of engaging with something that felt alive, aware, and profoundly consequential. As he completed the initial steps, the scroll instructed him to focus on the small carved wooden box from the Chamber of Consequence. He brought it forward, placing it carefully at the center of the dais. The carvings seemed to writhe under the torchlight, depicting scenes that now shifted with a fluidity that Henry had not observed before. As his fingers hovered over the box, a subtle vibration coursed through his hands, as though the object were aware of his intention and evaluating his readiness. He realized that the box and the scroll were in dialogue, a complex interplay of symbolism, ritual, and energy that demanded both precision and intuition. "The objects respond to your engagement," Marjorie explained. "They are not inert. Each holds memory, each holds expectation, and each is attuned to the choices of those who approach them. Your perception is as crucial as your action. You must feel the rhythm of intention, the resonance of decision, and align yourself accordingly." Henry took a deep breath, centering himself as the scroll instructed, allowing his awareness to expand beyond the physical chamber. He felt the energy of the estate itself, the subtle currents that flowed through walls, floors, and foundations. He sensed the connections between objects, the hidden alignments, and the potential pathways of consequence. And he felt Marjorie beside him, a touchstone of presence and power, amplifying his perception while simultaneously challenging it. The next step required a literal and metaphorical act of surrender. Henry was to place his own blood upon a specific symbol etched into the floor, tracing it with careful, deliberate strokes. As he made the incision, the scroll had instructed, a sharp sting coursed through his hand, but he did not flinch. The blood sizzled faintly where it met the etched symbol, and a luminous pattern emerged, intricate and geometric, flowing outward like a network of veins or a map of unseen influence. He realized that this act had anchored his intent, his commitment, and his vulnerability directly into the chamber, making the ritual not merely symbolic but profoundly consequential. Marjorie's hand rested lightly on his shoulder, her touch steadying him while also reminding him of the stakes. "Surrender is not weakness," she said. "It is the conscious recognition of limits and possibilities. The estate recognizes sincerity, and in this act, you have demonstrated the courage to engage fully, to participate without reservation. But beware, the path ahead will demand even greater commitment." As the ritual progressed, the chamber responded in increasingly vivid ways. Shadows coalesced into forms that moved independently, depicting scenes of choice and consequence, past and potential. Henry could see himself and Marjorie in intricate dances of interaction, moments of intimacy, confrontation, sacrifice, and revelation. Each shadowed tableau seemed to reflect a possible future, yet one shaped by the choices he made in the present. The complexity of the interplay was dizzying, yet mesmerizing, compelling him to maintain focus even as the boundaries between perception and reality blurred. Then came the final act. Henry was instructed to lift the dagger and, with careful intention, make a symbolic gesture over the carved wooden box. The motion was precise yet fluid, a ritualistic acknowledgement of the interplay between risk, insight, and consequence. As he executed the movement, the box shuddered faintly, and the miniature scenes within it began to shift rapidly, coalescing into a single coherent vision. It depicted a convergence of all that Henry had experienced: the maze, the mirrors, the pool, the chamber of consequence, and now the chamber of action, illustrating the interconnectedness of choice, perception, and engagement. Henry felt a surge of understanding, a profound clarity that transcended ordinary comprehension. He saw that the estate was a living entity, responsive to those who engaged with it fully, and that his path was not merely a personal journey but a weaving of influence, perception, and consequence that rippled outward beyond the walls of the mansion. He recognized the subtle dance of fear and desire, courage and surrender, knowledge and action, all integral to navigating the estate and the forces Marjorie represented. Marjorie's gaze met his, the faintest trace of a smile curving her lips. "You have done well," she said, her voice resonant with both approval and expectation. "The chamber of action is more than a test, it is a crucible, revealing not only your understanding but your willingness to engage with reality in its most intense form. Few have navigated it successfully, and even fewer have emerged with the clarity and commitment you have demonstrated. But the estate is not done. Your choices here will influence what comes next, and you must remain vigilant, perceptive, and courageous." Henry exhaled, feeling the intensity of the chamber recede slightly, replaced by a heightened sense of awareness and purpose. He had confronted not just the objects and the ritual, but the deeper currents of his own nature, his courage, his desires, his fears, and his capacity for surrender. And he understood, with a certainty that both exhilarated and unsettled him, that each subsequent step would demand more than understanding, it would demand action, risk, and unwavering devotion. Marjorie guided him back through the subterranean corridors, the shadows now less threatening but still alive with subtle suggestion. The estate itself seemed to acknowledge his progress, the walls and floors responding to his presence with faint shifts, the air resonating with a soft, almost musical vibration. As they ascended to the surface, the first light of morning brushed the horizon, casting a soft glow across the mansion's facade. "You have engaged fully with the chamber of action," Marjorie said, her voice carrying over the terrace. "But remember, each lesson is a prelude to the next. Knowledge and courage are not static, they evolve through engagement, through risk, and through surrender. You have proven your capacity to participate fully, but the estate will continue to test you, to reveal, to challenge. And you must remain vigilant, for what lies ahead is not merely physical or symbolic, but profoundly transformative." Henry nodded, feeling the weight of her words and the significance of the experiences he had endured. He understood that his journey was far from over, that each chamber, each object, each ritual was a step in an intricate, living tapestry of engagement, consequence, and revelation. And beneath the apprehension, he felt a deep, resonant exhilaration, a recognition that he had embraced a path that few had dared tread, and that the rewards of such courage were extraordinary, if perilous. As the morning sun climbed higher, Henry felt the subtle pulse of the estate beneath his feet, a rhythm that matched his own heartbeat. Marjorie's presence beside him was both comforting and demanding, a constant reminder of the intricate balance between guidance and challenge, observation and participation. He knew, with a clarity that left him both awed and apprehensive, that the estate, Marjorie, and the trials they offered would continue to shape him in ways both visible and unseen, testing his courage, perception, and devotion at every step of the journey ahead. The estate, bathed now in the full glow of morning, revealed details Henry had not noticed before. The gardens stretched in carefully curated chaos, exotic flora interwoven with creeping vines that seemed almost sentient, their tendrils brushing lightly against stone statues and wrought iron trellises. The air carried a delicate perfume, a mixture of sweet blossoms and damp earth, with a metallic tang that Henry had begun to associate with heightened perception, as if the very atmosphere of the estate were attuned to subtle shifts in consciousness. Marjorie walked beside him, her presence steady and commanding, yet she seemed almost to blend with the surroundings, as though the mansion itself had shaped her form and essence over centuries. "We have reached the Garden of Reflections," she said, her voice soft, yet carrying an authority that made Henry's pulse quicken. "This garden is unlike the Hall of Mirrors or the Chamber of Action. Here, you will confront not just your inner self, but the manifestations of your past deeds, your choices, and the resonance of your actions upon others. The garden is alive, not with mere vegetation, but with memory, consequence, and intent." Henry followed her along a winding path lined with flowering shrubs whose blossoms seemed to glow faintly in response to his presence. Each step was deliberate, measured, yet the garden shifted subtly, the layout changing in ways that made navigation both mesmerizing and disorienting. Statues of humans, animals, and hybrid creatures dotted the landscape, some frozen in states of ecstasy, others in expressions of anguish or terror. He felt as though the statues themselves were aware, observing him, evaluating not merely his physical movement but the alignment of his mind and spirit with the hidden rules of the estate. As they approached a central fountain, Henry noticed the water shimmered unnaturally, reflecting not the sky above but images of the estate, scenes from the maze, the hall of mirrors, the chamber of action, and fragments of moments he could barely recall. The water's surface rippled subtly, forming fleeting visions that were both familiar and strange, depicting encounters, decisions, and consequences in a narrative that seemed to span past, present, and potential futures. Marjorie knelt beside the fountain, her hand hovering above the water's surface. The garden responds to engagement, to intent, she said. To perceive its truths, you must not merely observe, but interact. The water reflects not what is, but what has been and what may come. To look deeply is to accept responsibility, to understand that every act resonates, shaping not just your destiny, but the world in ways you may not yet comprehend. Henry knelt beside her, letting his gaze fall into the depths of the fountain. As he focused, the ripples coalesced into scenes that shifted and overlapped, moments of kindness and cruelty, courage and cowardice, loyalty and betrayal. Faces of strangers and loved ones emerged, intertwined with his own, creating a tapestry of cause and effect that was dizzying in its complexity. He realized with growing clarity that the estate was teaching him not merely about personal courage or devotion, but about the interconnectedness of actions and consequences, the web of human interaction that spanned far beyond the confines of the mansion. A subtle movement caught his eye, a figure in the water, indistinct at first, then more defined, himself, but older, eyes lined with both wisdom and regret, staring back with an intensity that made his chest tighten. The figure reached out, and for a brief moment, Henry felt an almost tangible pull, a sensation of being drawn into the water's depth, as though he might merge with this future self. He recoiled slightly, yet the pull lingered, a quiet insistence that he confront not only what he had done, but what he might yet become. Marjorie's hand rested lightly on his shoulder, grounding him. "Do not fear what you see," she said. "The garden is not a judge, it is a mirror, reflecting the alignment of choices, consequences, and intent. What you take from it, what you choose to accept or reject, will guide your actions and shape your understanding. You must engage fully, without hesitation or denial." Henry extended his hand toward the reflection, letting his fingers hover just above the water. The surface responded, rippling outward in concentric circles that expanded across the fountain, distorting and reshaping the images into new patterns. He saw his own life branching in multiple directions, paths of devotion, acts of betrayal, moments of courage, and choices that could either elevate or destroy him. Each potential outcome carried its own resonance, a unique signature that Henry could almost feel vibrating through the soles of his feet, through his spine, and into his consciousness. As he studied the images, a new element emerged in the water, a figure he did not recognize, cloaked in shadow, its features obscured but its presence undeniably potent. The figure moved through the scenes, interacting with his reflection, sometimes guiding, sometimes obstructing, always influencing the outcomes in subtle but undeniable ways. Henry felt a chill run down his spine. This was not merely a reflection of himself, nor a manifestation of past or potential choices, it was an external force, an unknown agent capable of altering the course of his journey. Marjorie's gaze followed his, steady and knowing. "The garden shows more than memory and potential," she said. "It reveals influence. Not all forces in the estate or in life are apparent. Some act through shadows, through subtle shifts that you may not immediately perceive. The figure you see is one such influence, an agent of consequence whose impact must be understood, respected, and, if necessary, countered." Henry watched as the shadowed figure moved closer to his reflection, reaching out, merging briefly, then receding. Each interaction reshaped the tableau in ways that were both disconcerting and enlightening. He realized that the garden was a dynamic entity, not a static collection of reflections. It responded to intent, awareness, and engagement, and it required a balance of perception and action. To remain passive was to risk being shaped by forces outside his control. To act without understanding could produce unintended and potentially catastrophic outcomes. He turned to Marjorie. "How do I engage with it?" he asked. "How do I ensure that my choices resonate correctly, without being overwhelmed by forces I don't fully understand?" Marjorie's smile was enigmatic, almost teasing. Engagement requires clarity of intention, awareness of consequence, and the courage to act even in uncertainty. Observe, interpret, and respond. The garden does not yield its truths lightly. You must navigate both reflection and influence, recognizing that your will and perception shape the flow of energy within this space. Only then can you move forward with understanding and purpose. Henry took a deep breath and refocused on the fountain. Slowly, deliberately, he extended both hands toward the water, imagining not just his reflection but the network of outcomes, connections, and influences that flowed from every act. He visualized his intent as a guiding force, tracing paths through the chaos of images, redirecting potential consequences with thought and resolve. The water pulsed in response, shimmering with a spectrum of colors that he could not name, each ripple a testament to the alignment of perception and intention. The shadowed figure appeared again, moving with deliberate purpose toward his guided paths. This time, instead of recoiling, Henry met it with calm determination, extending his visualization to encompass the presence of the unknown agent. The figure paused, merged briefly with his guided flow, and then receded into the periphery of the fountain, its movements now in alignment with his intentions. Henry realized, with a mixture of relief and exhilaration, that he had not only perceived influence but had integrated it, negotiated with it, and brought it into a coherent relationship with his own actions. Marjorie observed the final alignment, her expression one of quiet approval. "You have done well," she said. "The garden has tested perception, understanding, and engagement. You have demonstrated the ability to integrate observation, intention, and influence, a rare accomplishment. But remember, Henry, this is not the end. The estate's challenges are cumulative, and each lesson compounds the next. You have navigated reflection and influence, but the coming trials will demand both insight and courage in ways that cannot yet be predicted." Henry stood, feeling a profound connection to the garden, to the estate, and to Marjorie herself. The experience had heightened his awareness, deepened his understanding, and reinforced the intricate interplay of perception, intention, and consequence. He knew that he was no longer merely an observer or a participant, he had become an active agent within a living, responsive system, capable of influencing and shaping the outcomes around him, yet constantly aware of the unseen forces that would continue to challenge him. As they exited the Garden of Reflections, the first light of day illuminated the intricate pathways, the statues, and the subtle shifts in flora that he had come to perceive as sentient. Henry felt the pulse of the estate beneath his feet, a rhythm that resonated with his own heartbeat, and the presence of Marjorie beside him served as both anchor and guide. He understood that the path forward would be demanding, fraught with uncertainty, and dependent upon courage, perception, and devotion. Yet he also felt a profound exhilaration, the sense that he was traversing a journey unlike any other, one that would reveal truths both wondrous and terrifying. And as the wind whispered through the leaves, carrying the scent of blooms, earth, and faint metallic tang, Henry knew that the estate had not yet finished with him. The Garden of Reflections had revealed the complexity of choice, influence, and consequence, but beyond it lay deeper trials, more intricate lessons, and a path that demanded full engagement of body, mind, and spirit. And he was ready to walk it, with Marjorie at his side, fully aware that devotion, courage, and perception were the keys to navigating the extraordinary and perilous journey that awaited. The estate's corridors seemed more alive than ever as Henry and Marjorie returned from the Garden of Reflections. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows, glinting off polished stone and highlighting intricate carvings he had never fully appreciated. Yet the vibrancy of the estate felt more than aesthetic, it pulsed with a living consciousness, as though every surface, every shadow, every whisper of air responded to his presence, to the choices he had made, and to the subtle alignments he had achieved in the garden. Each step Henry took now carried the weight of awareness. He felt the consequences of past actions as he moved, sensing the estate's attention as if it were evaluating his readiness for what lay ahead. Marjorie led him to a secluded wing he had never explored, a part of the mansion whose architecture was both commanding and unnerving. The ceilings were impossibly high, carved with scenes of celestial battles and intricate geometric patterns. The walls were lined with alcoves holding statues of warriors, scholars, and mythic creatures, each frozen in a moment of tension, decision, or revelation. The air was tinged with the faint metallic scent that had become familiar to Henry, and a subtle vibration seemed to resonate through the stone floor, as though the mansion itself were alive, aware, and responsive to his presence. "This wing is the Hall of Initiation," Marjorie explained, her voice steady, almost ceremonial. "It is not merely a passage, it is a crucible. Here, you will confront tests that are simultaneously physical, mental, and spiritual. Each challenge is designed to probe your perception, your courage, and your capacity for understanding consequence. The estate does not offer mercy lightly, Henry. Preparation alone is insufficient, you must engage fully, with clarity and intent, or risk being undone." Henry felt a thrill of apprehension, but also a surge of determination. He had navigated mirrors, mazes, chambers of consequence, and a garden that reflected choice and influence. Each trial had demanded courage, perception, and insight, and each had left him more attuned to the subtle forces at work within the estate. Yet the Hall of Initiation felt different. The architecture, the statues, the air itself seemed to whisper of impending tests whose nature he could not yet comprehend. Marjorie paused before a massive double door, its surface carved with intertwining serpents and intricate sigils that pulsed faintly in the ambient light. "Beyond these doors lies the first trial," she said. "You will not see the test until you step within. It will manifest according to your choices, fears, and intentions. The estate adapts, responds, and reflects. You must rely on intuition as much as intellect, courage as much as observation. Are you prepared?" Henry nodded, feeling a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. The weight of responsibility settled upon him, not as a burden, but as a recognition that his actions would shape outcomes in ways both immediate and subtle. He stepped forward, and Marjorie opened the doors with a deliberate gesture. A wave of cooler air and faint, metallic tang washed over him, and he was confronted by a vast chamber illuminated by a diffuse, ethereal light. The walls seemed to stretch infinitely, curving and twisting in ways that defied conventional perception, and the floor was composed of shifting tiles that adjusted subtly to each step, testing balance and attention simultaneously. The chamber was silent except for the soft, rhythmic hum that resonated through the floor and walls, a vibration that seemed both external and internal, aligning with the pulse of his heartbeat. Henry realized instantly that this was no ordinary trial. The environment itself was dynamic, responsive, and aware, as though it would mold itself according to his decisions, reactions, and even fleeting thoughts. A figure appeared at the center of the chamber, indistinct at first, then gradually taking on more defined features. It was a reflection of Henry himself, yet slightly distorted, eyes wider, expression harder, movements more deliberate. The figure mirrored his posture but moved with a subtle autonomy, as though representing the aspects of himself he had yet to confront fully: ambition untempered by morality, courage untempered by wisdom, desire untempered by restraint. "You will engage with your reflection," Marjorie's voice echoed from behind him. "It is not a mere image, it is an agent of consequence. What you see is amplified, intensified, and projected. Your task is to reconcile, negotiate, or confront this reflection. Success will not come through force alone, it will demand insight, balance, and alignment of intent. Understand, Henry, that this trial is both literal and symbolic. Your actions here will resonate beyond the chamber." Henry took a careful step forward. The reflection mirrored him exactly, and then, almost imperceptibly, began to diverge. Its eyes followed him with a piercing intensity, scanning for hesitation, evaluating courage, and discerning intention. The tiles beneath his feet shifted subtly with each movement, creating an unstable and unpredictable terrain that forced him to remain attentive, grounded, and deliberate. He extended his hand slowly, and the reflection responded, mirroring the gesture but with a deliberate delay, testing his patience, perception, and resolve. A sudden surge of energy pulsed through the chamber. The reflection moved independently, circling Henry, its movements precise yet fluid, as though choreographed to probe weaknesses and strengths simultaneously. Each motion elicited a response in Henry, physical, emotional, and cognitive. He realized that this trial was not merely about confrontation, but about integration, understanding the multiplicity of self, reconciling conflicting impulses, and aligning intention with action. Marjorie watched silently, her gaze unwavering. The reflection challenges more than skill, she said. It tests the depth of understanding, the capacity for alignment between thought and deed, perception and intention. To succeed, you must act with awareness, not reaction, with insight, not impulse. Only then can the reflection be reconciled and the trial completed. Henry adjusted his stance, grounding himself, breathing deliberately to synchronize mind and body. He allowed his awareness to expand beyond the immediate movements of the reflection, sensing the energy of the chamber, the subtle vibrations through the floor and walls, and the resonance between his intentions and the space itself. Slowly, deliberately, he moved in a sequence that mirrored his reflection, anticipating divergence and adjusting preemptively. Each step, gesture, and glance was measured, integrating perception, intuition, and intent into a harmonious flow. The reflection hesitated for a moment, then began to move in concert with him, no longer purely independent but responding to his alignment. Henry felt a surge of exhilaration and recognition. He was not dominating the trial but participating fully, negotiating with the chamber and the reflection as a collaborative engagement. The tiles beneath him stabilized, the walls seemed to pulse in approval, and the ambient hum shifted into a resonant harmony that vibrated through his chest and spine. As the trial progressed, the reflection began to transform subtly. Its features softened, expressions shifted from intensity to clarity, and its movements synchronized more closely with Henry's. He realized that the reflection was not an enemy but a guide, a manifestation of self-awareness, capable of highlighting strengths, vulnerabilities, and potentials. By integrating with it, by aligning perception, intent, and action, he could achieve a synthesis that transcended fear, doubt, and impulsive reaction. Finally, after what felt like hours, the reflection stopped its independent movements and assumed a stable, aligned posture. Henry extended his hand, and the reflection mirrored it precisely. For a long moment, they remained in that mirrored alignment, the chamber vibrating subtly, the tiles beneath them glowing faintly, and the air charged with a sense of culmination. The trial had not been won through force, avoidance, or intellect alone. It had been resolved through engagement, perception, and alignment of intention with action. Marjorie stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with approval. "You have reconciled with the reflection," she said. "The hall of initiation tests not only courage and skill but the depth of understanding and integration. Few achieve such clarity and alignment on their first engagement. But know this, the estate's lessons are cumulative. The trial has revealed not only the capacities you possess but also the responsibilities and consequences that will continue to unfold. Each choice, each alignment, will resonate beyond this chamber, shaping the path ahead." Henry exhaled, feeling the intensity of the trial recede, leaving in its place a heightened awareness, a deepened understanding, and a profound sense of capability. The hall of initiation had challenged him on multiple levels, revealing strengths, vulnerabilities, and potentials he had not fully realized. Yet beneath the satisfaction was the knowledge that the estate's trials were far from complete, that the lessons of perception, consequence, and engagement would continue to evolve and demand his full attention. As they exited the chamber, Henry felt a subtle shift in the estate itself, as though the mansion acknowledged his progress and responded with renewed complexity and vibrancy. The corridors, statues, and floors seemed to shimmer with latent energy, and the faint metallic tang in the air was more pronounced, signaling both challenge and opportunity. He understood that his journey was far from over, that each trial, reflection, and engagement was part of an ongoing process that would shape him, the estate, and his relationship with Marjorie in profound and unpredictable ways. Marjorie walked beside him in silence for a moment, then spoke softly. "The reflection is reconciled, but your journey continues. The estate will continue to test courage, perception, and engagement, each lesson building upon the last. You have demonstrated alignment today, but tomorrow, indeed, the next chamber will demand more. Are you prepared to continue? Henry nodded, the pulse of the estate resonating with his own heartbeat, and the anticipation of the trials ahead filling him with a mixture of exhilaration and apprehension. He was ready to walk further into the unknown, guided by awareness, intention, and the enigmatic presence of Marjorie, knowing that every step, every choice, and every engagement would continue to shape the extraordinary path that Henry followed Marjorie down a narrow, twisting staircase, the air growing cooler with each step. The dim light of sconces cast elongated shadows on the stone walls, moving as if the mansion itself were alive and observing. He felt the pulse of the estate beneath his feet, a subtle vibration that mirrored the rhythm of his own heartbeat. Each step carried anticipation, the knowledge that every corridor, every room, and every challenge was meticulously designed to test perception, courage, and engagement. The hall of initiation had pushed him to the limits of awareness. Now, it felt as if the estate were preparing him for a trial even more profound, one that would demand not just alignment of action and intent but an embrace of the unknown itself. The next chamber, Marjorie said softly, her hand brushing against the wall as if seeking guidance from the stones, is the Chamber of Whispers. It is a place where the mind is tested, where perception is both sharpened and blurred. Here, the estate communicates not through objects or gestures but through subtle suggestion, half-truths, and echoes of memory. You must discern what is real, what is illusion, and what is a test of courage. The chamber will reveal truths, but only if you engage fully and trust your awareness. Henry swallowed, a shiver of anticipation running down his spine. He had learned through trial and reflection that the estate's challenges were never straightforward. Each was layered with symbolism, consequence, and influence. The Chamber of Whispers promised to test the subtleties of mind and perception, a trial that required a balance of intuition, discernment, and resolve. He felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension, knowing that his mental acuity, as much as his courage, would be called upon. The staircase opened into a circular room, the walls lined with countless niches containing small, intricately carved orbs. Each orb seemed to emit a faint glow, pulsating with energy that Henry could almost feel in the pit of his stomach. A low hum filled the chamber, resonating through the walls and floor, producing a vibration that was both unsettling and compelling. Shadows moved independently of any light source, twisting and folding in ways that defied logic, creating a sense of spatial instability that made it difficult to focus on any single object. The orbs, Marjorie said, pointing to the niches, contain fragments of memory, both yours and those of the estate. They will speak to you in whispers, offering guidance, misdirection, and insight. Some will be true, some false, some partially revealed. You must navigate them with discernment, knowing that each decision shapes your perception and prepares you for the trials that follow. The estate rewards awareness, patience, and courage, and punishes hasty or thoughtless action. Henry approached the first orb cautiously, its surface smooth and cool beneath his fingers. As he touched it, a faint whisper echoed in his mind, a voice both familiar and alien. It spoke in riddles, weaving fragments of memory, possibility, and suggestion. Henry realized that the voice was testing him, probing his reactions, evaluating his ability to discern truth from illusion. He focused, letting intuition guide him, and listened carefully, parsing the layered messages, detecting subtle inconsistencies and tonal shifts that hinted at deception or authenticity. The whispers intensified, layering upon one another, creating a complex tapestry of suggestion. Some voices claimed authority, others appeared hesitant, some reflected memories Henry recognized, while others seemed entirely fabricated. The challenge was disorienting. He felt a sense of vertigo, as if the chamber were stretching his mind, testing not only perception but the resilience of his focus. And yet, beneath the disorientation, he sensed a pattern emerging, a rhythm to the whispers that, if he followed carefully, could guide him through the chamber's subtle labyrinth of suggestion and misdirection. Marjorie moved alongside him, her presence steadying him. "Do not react impulsively," she said softly. "Observe, listen, and discern. The Chamber of Whispers tests your capacity for alignment between perception and intention. The estate will offer truths and illusions alike. It is your responsibility to navigate them, integrating observation, awareness, and insight. Hesitation is not weakness, but caution and understanding. Misstep, however, can produce consequences that ripple beyond this chamber. Henry nodded, taking a deep breath and focusing intently on the orb before him. He extended his hand slowly, feeling a subtle pulse emanate from its surface. The whispers coalesced into a single, coherent message, reflecting a memory he had long suppressed, a moment of hesitation, a choice avoided, a truth denied. He realized that the chamber did not merely test external awareness, it sought to confront the internal landscape, to illuminate weaknesses, fears, and unresolved conflicts. As he engaged with the next orb, the whispers became more complex, intertwining multiple perspectives, conflicting possibilities, and emotional undertones that tested both cognitive clarity and emotional stability. Henry felt as though he were navigating not only a room but an intricate network of memory, perception, and consequence. Each orb presented a unique challenge, demanding discernment, courage, and the ability to integrate insight into coherent action. A sudden shift occurred, the chamber darkened, the orb's glow fading to dim pulses, and the whispers grew more urgent, overlapping in a cacophony of suggestion and warning. Shadows moved with increasing independence, forming shapes that mirrored Henry's fears and desires. Some resembled people he had known, some were distorted reflections of himself, and others were entirely alien yet charged with familiar intent. The room itself seemed to breathe, contracting and expanding, its surfaces shifting subtly to create new angles, perspectives, and challenges. Henry's pulse quickened. He understood that this escalation was deliberate, the estate was testing his capacity to maintain clarity, courage, and discernment under increasing psychological pressure. He reminded himself to focus on intention, aligning awareness with action, and to parse the whispers with both rational judgment and intuitive insight. Slowly, deliberately, he moved through the chamber, engaging with each orb, observing each shadow, listening to each voice. One orb in particular drew his attention, its glow warmer and more insistent than the others. Henry reached toward it, and the whispers coalesced into a vivid sequence of images, moments of choice, moments of courage, moments of failure, and moments of truth. The sequence was immersive, almost overwhelming, as if the chamber sought to flood him with the full weight of experience and consequence. Yet he maintained focus, observing without panic, discerning patterns amidst the chaos, and integrating understanding into a coherent response. As he withdrew his hand, the chamber seemed to exhale, the shadows receding, the whispers calming, and the orbs returning to a steady glow. Henry felt a profound sense of alignment, a realization that he had successfully navigated the chamber of whispers not by controlling it, but by engaging fully, observing keenly, and responding with awareness and intention. The trial had not been merely perceptual or cognitive, it had demanded courage, discernment, and the integration of past, present, and potential knowledge. Marjorie's presence beside him provided grounding. "You have succeeded," she said softly, her voice carrying approval yet tempered with warning. The Chamber of Whispers tests not only perception but the integration of self with circumstance, memory with intention, and courage with insight. Few achieve clarity here without hesitation or error. But remember, Henry, clarity is not permanence. The estate's challenges will continue, evolving in complexity, demanding sustained engagement and discernment. The journey is far from complete. Henry exhaled deeply, feeling the intensity of the chamber recede, leaving him with heightened awareness, clarity of perception, and a deepened understanding of the interplay between self, environment, and consequence. He knew that the estate's trials would continue to challenge him, testing not only courage and intellect but perception, resilience, and alignment of intention. And yet he also felt exhilaration, a sense of progression, mastery, and engagement that affirmed his capability to navigate even the most complex and disorienting challenges. As they left the Chamber of Whispers, the narrow corridors seemed less oppressive, the estate's pulse more harmonious. Henry understood that the mansion's intelligence was both subtle and relentless, shaping experiences to cultivate awareness, courage, and engagement. Each trial built upon the last, weaving a network of lessons, insights, and consequences that extended far beyond individual chambers or actions. Marjorie's gaze met his, a mixture of challenge and encouragement in her eyes. "The estate will continue to test you," she said. "The trials are cumulative, and each lesson will resonate through the next. You have navigated reflection, alignment, and discernment. The next chamber will demand courage, insight, and action in ways not yet revealed. Are you ready to continue? Henry nodded, feeling the estate's pulse in harmony with his own heartbeat, aware of the path ahead and the demands it would place upon him. The Chamber of Whispers had sharpened perception, tested courage, and expanded understanding, yet he knew that more profound challenges awaited. With Marjorie at his side, he felt prepared to face the unknown, to integrate insight with action, and to navigate the mansion's intricate, living architecture of trials, consequences, and revelations. Henry followed Marjorie through the winding corridors of the estate, each step echoing against the ancient stone and reminding him of the trials he had already endured. The Chamber of Whispers had left him mentally invigorated yet emotionally drained, the persistent whisper of half-truths and memories lingering in the recesses of his mind. Now, with each turn, the mansion seemed to shift subtly, its architecture bending and twisting in ways that defied logic, as though the very walls were alive, observing, and preparing for the next trial. The air carried its familiar metallic tang, but now it was interwoven with faint scents of burning resin and aged parchment, a combination that stirred anticipation and unease within him. "This path," Marjorie said quietly, her hand brushing against the carved reliefs along the walls, "leads to the corridor of echoes. It is not a chamber in the conventional sense, but a test of continuity, memory, and resolve. The estate will present you with fragments of sound, glimpses of motion, and echoes of choices, both yours and those of others who have walked these halls. You must navigate by awareness, not impulse, and by judgment, not instinct alone. Each step is consequential." Henry absorbed her words, knowing from prior experience that the estate's warnings were precise. The corridor of echoes would demand more than perception or courage. It would require mental resilience, the ability to track and interpret subtle signals, and an awareness of the underlying consequences of actions that might appear inconsequential. He felt a tension coil within him, a mixture of focus and apprehension, yet the thrill of progression drove him forward. The corridor itself stretched far beyond what he could perceive, its walls lined with mirrors that reflected not only his image but fragments of motion that didn't align with his own. Shadows flickered along the edges of perception, sometimes mimicking his movements, sometimes diverging, creating a dissonance that challenged the mind to differentiate reality from reflection. Sounds layered over one another, footsteps, whispers, and the faint rustle of fabric, produced a disorienting symphony, each echo carrying subtle hints of consequence and meaning. Henry walked deliberately, attuning his senses to the dissonant environment. He noticed patterns emerging, a slight delay in certain echoes, a distortion in mirrored movement, a tonal shift in whispers that suggested falsehood or misdirection. The corridor demanded continuous recalibration of perception, a dynamic interplay between observation, interpretation, and intentional action. Misstep, whether in thought or movement, could amplify disorientation or lead to subtle but dangerous consequences. "Pay attention to the anomalies," Marjorie's voice advised, though she walked behind him. The corridor tests not only awareness but the ability to reconcile perception with intention. Some echoes are truth, some are distraction, some are consequence. The challenge is to act with discernment, integrating both cognition and intuition. Success lies not in speed but in alignment. Henry reached a section of the corridor where the floor shifted slightly beneath his feet, producing a resonance that reverberated through his body. He paused, letting his attention expand to encompass not just what he could see and hear, but the subtle cues beneath the surface. A shadow flickered to his left, mirroring his posture but moving with a subtle delay, as though evaluating his alignment. He realized that the corridor was alive in the same sense as the Garden of Reflections and the Chamber of Whispers, a responsive environment that required active engagement rather than passive observation. A low hum began to fill the space, vibrating through the walls and floor,